Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form. This Saturday out at Del Mar, the feature race is the Grade 2 Pat O'Brien at 7 furlongs on the dirt. A field of 11 has been put together, and we'll take a look at this field top to bottom. It's a really great edition of the race. So a couple of horses in here are hoping to improve off their latest efforts, such as Spirit of McKenna. There's other horses that have really just been consistent types, such as Brickyard Ride, Anarchist, and a couple others that are coming off of nice wins, but will need to step up once again. So I think it's a really great betting race. Curious to see, the prices in here that we might be able to get on some of these runners. But we'll kick things off with the horse on the rail, the number 1, Moose Mitchell. And we'll take a look at his last effort back on the 22nd of July at Del Mar. It was going 6.5 furlongs onto the main track. And he's the number 7 in here.
One
And he was
second.
seeing
Sorry.
really
Are you gonna go to the pace projector or no?
Oh, good call. Let's redo that.
Okay. So luckily, I was like, oh my god, I was not ready for that, and I was like scrambling for the replay. Hold on.
Yeah, we can just restart it. You're good.
So we were on the entry card. You can just lead right into the pace projector. Do you want to do that?
Okay. We will go again.
Whenever you're ready.
We'll take a look at the time form pace projections here for the Pat O'Brien, and kind of looking at the setup here. Want to be shocked to see Brickyard Ride on the lead. This has been his go-to game since the beginning. And you look at his races, he's very speedy. He tried to take that speed longer last time out, and the cutback should actually set up really nicely for him. Hoist the Gold's had some very good races where he's been very close to the pace, been second to courses such as Cody's Wish. And I think from a pace perspective, he makes a lot of sense. And then one of the newcomers to California is toward the outside, the number 10, Vivir con Alegria. This is the Chilean bred who's been very speedy, but has surrendered in his 2 efforts that we've seen at Gulfstream. And he draws the outside in here, which I do think makes him even more of a threat, knowing that he may try to, break sharply, but then also get over and save some ground. So you also notice here the late projection flag here for late pace is on the 11, Bye Bye Bobby, who you look at his races, his best races have been when he's come from off the pace. So we'll be looking for him in the final stages. But we'll start going through the field here. 11 runners. The number 1 is Moose Mitchell, and we'll take a look at his most recent performance. That was at Del Mar back on July 22nd. And he's already on the lead here at the top of the stretch, and the way he's going to be able to open up here I thought was pretty nice. He's now won 3 races in a row, and everyone else is really trying to get to him at this point. And while there are a couple of horses at this point that are making up ground, he's really kind of holding his own here in the stretch. Now, looking at him, though, in the Pat O'Brien, he's going to get tested for class. This is a horse, when you go back to the races in 2022, you could have claimed him for $22,500, and he's been able to kind of hold his own against some allowance competition in the first and second levels, but this is certainly a step up. He does love Del Mar, though. He is 3 for 7 so far in his career, a 7-time winner overall. The number 2, Gojo 1, he's another horse that he thinks maybe going to be forwardly placed in his most recent effort at 6.5 furlongs. He just couldn't keep up, though, with Moose Mitchell and a couple of the others. He surrendered. He was tracking in second throughout. He ended up finishing 4th, and that has been the story in his last 3. When you go back to the efforts, though, 2 and 3 starts back, he was going a mile and an eighth. 1 was on the turf, 1 was on the dirt. They cut him back, and you would have thought he would have been a little sharper, but it was a long layoff as well, so he could certainly improve second off the layoff, but from a numbers perspective, he is really going to need to take a step up to hang out and kind of, be able to face some of these bigger names. Number 3, Hoist the Gold. This one out of the Dallas Stewart barn, going to ship out west. He already shipped out west for the Bing Crosby, where he was 8th in that field of 12. But he's a horse that's predominantly been on the East Coast. They've taken him all over the place, and he was able to win 2 starts back at Ellis Park. Go down the page, not a horse that likes to win a lot. He's just 3 for 22 in his career, but you start to key in on some of his races, such as Kentucky Derby Day weekend when he was second behind Cody's Wish. I know he was simply second best, but we know how good Cody's Wish has been, especially at these one-turn distances, and he's held his own, so he's a little bit of a wild card. Ray Lou Gutierrez is going to come over and climb aboard him. He rides for Dallas a lot, hasn't been aboard this horse as you go down the page. It's going to be interesting to see what the tactics are for him. I do think he should be forwardly placed, and we did see that with the time form pace projections. The number 4, Sir Atticus, is one of the John Sheriff's barn. We'll take a look at his most recent effort. On debut, he was 4th, but now he's won 2 races in a row, including this race back on July 21st at Del Mar, where he was forwardly placed from the get-go, and he's really going to draw clear in this field. And to watch him kick on here, I thought was pretty impressive. This is at 6.5. You have to think the 7 furlong distance is going to work well for him. But again, another one that is stepping up significantly in class. He's never been against stakes competition. He's lightly raced. And it's interesting to note one other thing. He's had a blowout drill for this race back on August 23rd. So just 3 days before the scheduled race, had a really nice drill. So curious to see him going forward. I just think the waters may be deep for him in this spot. Now, horse that has a lot of race day experience, unlike Sir Atticus, is the number 5, CZ Rocket, who has just been a very fun horse to watch over the years. He's banked over $2 million in purse earnings. He's needed more, especially in his last two. I thought his efforts back in May at Santa Anita, they were respectable. He finished second in both of them behind Dr. Scheibel and Spirit of McKenna, but he really hasn't taken any steps forward since then. They did try to take him to the fair circuit for the Pleasanton Mile at 1.70 miles. He sort of split the field in there, and more recently, he was making a late run and did improve his position in the Bing Crosby, but just wasn't strong enough. Now, we know he likes Del Mar. He's had those 2 wins there in his career. I think the most interesting thing about him is he's going to get blinkers. He's going to have blinkers on. You go down the page. It's been a while since he's raced with them. He did race with them last year at Del Mar and was able to pick up a wing. And I just wonder if it's because of what they saw in the Bing Crosby, where he is pretty far back. Maybe they do want him in a better position early on. The 6, Brickyard Ride. This Calbred has been just so fun to watch over the years. He's a 13-time winner from 27 career starts, and he got tested last time out. We're going to take a look at this replay for the San Diego Handicap, and he got tested for a couple of reasons. He was in a lot of Calbred races. He had tried grade 2 and grade 3 competition, had been picking up those minor shares. But the main thing, he was stretching out to 1.16 miles. And this is a horse that's really stamped himself anywhere from 6 furlongs to maybe a mile, but typically 6.5 furlongs. And he's going to get caught here. He went quick early on, obviously not as quick as what we saw in some of his one-turn races, but it was just a whole new ball game for him. He ended up finishing third. He was beaten by 3 lengths, a 96 Beyer speed figure for the effort. And going into that race, had to think maybe the distance would be his limitation. So now cutting back to 7/8 really should help his chances in just making a second start since late May. The number 7, Spirit of McKenna, didn't break at all in the Bing Crosby, and I really think that worked against him. Prior to that, he had done nothing wrong in his career, a very limited career with just going into that race. He had 5 prior starts, and we'll take a look at his race before the Bing Crosby, which was the grade 2 Triple Bend, and this was a step up. He had tried grade 3 waters, but this was just another little bit of a move forward. His number didn't improve, but he was facing horses such as CZ Rocket, Forbidden Kingdom, just really, really solid horses. And I like the way that he was able to win this performance. He draws clear, and he's simply much the best. But as I mentioned, a little bit of a head scratcher last time out. He did take a lot of respect. Got a 58 Beyer speed figure. He just never fired from the back of the pack. So hopefully he can rebound, making a second start off the layoff. And you would think he would. You would think if he's able to break out of the gate that we can see a big improved performance and positive sign. Joe Bravo's going to stick with him. This horse has been really impressive in all of his other races. The number 8, Visitant, this one out of the Peter Miller barn. A new acquisition of the Peter Miller barn, you can see, was based in Kentucky for a very long time. Had some huge wins with some big numbers at Turfway Park predominantly. You go down the page, anywhere from December of 2021 all the way to February of this year. All of those races were at Turfway, so he had some big breaks, and it didn't seem to matter. This is a horse that has romped in some of those performances, such as the Forgo, the Big Daddy, even was second in the Kentucky Cup Classic. The big question is the dirt. We've seen him on the dirt 4 times in his career. He's picked up a couple of minor checks, but no dirt wins on his resume. He's really been a synthetic horse, so find it interesting to note his last workout at Del Mar was a bullet, the fastest out of 31 workers at that 5 furlong distance from the gate. It was 59-3, as I mentioned, on August 16th. Very, very interesting horse. I'm really curious to see how the betting public will handle him, just knowing that the dirt is something that he hasn't been able to find the winner's circle while racing over. The number 9, Anarchist, we'll take a look at his most recent effort for trainer Doug O'Neill. Ramon Vasquez was in the irons back on July 29th. This is a very good performance in the Bing Crosby. We've talked about the Bing Crosby a little bit, of a couple horses not firing. And our Anarchist at odds of 8-1 runs huge here. Is actually going to finish second, beaten by a head behind the Chosen Vron, who is a horse that was another hard-knocking type. When I think of the Chosen Vron, I think of horses such as Brickyard Ride, and they've just done very well in California. And the Chosen Vron was able to handle that big step up in class to grade 1 waters. And these two really not much separated them in the end. And I feel like Anarchist If you go down the page, he hasn't taken a lot of respect in his career in the betting windows. He hasn't gone off as necessarily huge prices, but he's rarely been favored. In fact, he's only been favored once. He did win that race. It was up at Woodbine in the Jacques Cartier. And since then, 2 really nice seconds behind the Chosen Run, and then 2 back Elite Power, who was a next out winner. So he's a horse that he's a 4-year-old that I think is improving. I think he's very sneaky. You kind of have to watch him anywhere he goes. He's going to get a little extra distance. And I don't think that will hurt him as well, just knowing that 6.5 and 6 furlongs are distances he's been making up ground in those late stages. The 10, Vivir con Alegria. This is a Chilean bred for the Amador Sanchez barn, who figures to be part of the pace. Now, you go to that race 2 back. That's all the way back in October of 2022. O'Connor for trainer Sappy Joseph Jr. ran well. Octane, who's been a good horse in Florida, was second. And this horse just surrendered, went pretty quick, maybe needed a race. We hadn't seen him since April of 2022. Then he had another break after that race, which is something that I don't personally love, that he had that one start and those 2 big breaks in between those. And then you see that effort on July 16th. He's just going to be second best behind Long Range Toddy. He's a horse that has been a hard-knocking horse for several years now. His performance was an improvement, and maybe he will improve second off the layoff, but he's going to need to show a lot more than we've seen in those 2 efforts down in South Florida. Then rounding out the field, finally, as the number 11, Bye Bye Bobby out of the Talon Fincher barn. Todd has done a good job with this horse. He's a consistent type this year. You can see 5 for 6 in the money, 3 wins. The wins you can see have come not at Del Mar, but this horse did actually run pretty well last time out to finish 3rd in that grade 3 event behind Order in Law, who was a very impressive winner. Azul Coast was second. He's another one that's going to need his very best. These are deeper waters. He is facing tougher horses, and looking at where his wins have been on the road at other tracks, he just hasn't been as competitive. But as we saw with the time form pace projection, he does have the late pace flag. So assuming that there maybe is some pace for him to run at, especially considering he's coming out of a 1.5-mile event and is significantly cutting back in distance, maybe he can close late. Drayden Van Dyke is set to ride him for the first time. But that's the field of 11 for this year's edition of the Pat O'Brien. I think it's a very competitive event, and I'm going to give Spirit of McKenna one more shot. I mean, this is a horse that did nothing wrong going into the Bing Crosby, did not break from the gate at all, and never was able to run from there. So I think if the connections are keeping this one in such a tough group this year, and this race specifically, I'm hoping this one's able to rebound. I mentioned the number 9, Anarchist. Thought about using this horse on top. I'm really curious to see, kind of getting close to post time on Saturday, what his odds will be, because I think he's underrated. And time again, he's proved that he belongs in these races and can fire huge efforts. And I also think the 7 Ace is going to help him. The 6 Brickyard Ride, part of the pace perspective, should really appreciate the cutback from 1 mile and a 16th to 7 furlongs. And I think just look at his resume. He's really hard to rule out, especially in these races. But the one thing working against him, he is 0 for 5 in terms of wins at Del Mar. And finally, the 3 Hoist the Gold. Just think it's intriguing. They're going to give him another shot in California after a disappointing 8th place finish. But as I mentioned when we talked about these horses individually, he has held his own against some very nice horses, such as Cody's Wish. And even going down the page, some other big names. So he could be intriguing in this spot. But as I mentioned, the number 7, Spirit of McKenna, is my top pick in Saturday's Pat O'Brien at Del Mar. Good luck.